Приветствую всех на канале Нового Ретро Play Stars. С вами Серый Скорпион. Сегодня мы с вами посмотрим 13-минутное геймплейное видео игры Metro Exodus с Gamescom 2018 года. Всем приятного просмотра.
Welcome back to IGN Live at Gamescom 2018. I'm James Duggan, and joining me is John Block, executive producer at 4A Games, to discuss Metro Exodus. Now, John, your beard is looking long and full, more so than when we last spoke, so that must mean that Metro Exodus is getting closer and closer to release. So tell us what we're going to be looking at. You brought some gameplay for us.
Yeah, so we're showing off a new level here at Gamescom, and it's we call it the Taiga, and it's takes place in a forest environment. It's thousands of kilometers away from the Moscow city center, and takes place during the season of autumn. So as you can imagine, because the journey over this through this game takes place over the course of a year, and we see all 4 seasons, this level is actually pretty far along in the game.
That's exciting. So previously Metro, obviously the core of the franchise is underground, subterranean, but now we're venturing out into Russia, and you've chosen seasons to articulate that. So are we going to be seeing the same environments in different seasons, or is it just going to kind of time-wise move along in terms of seasons as we're playing?
So all the different environments that you'll come to in Metro, all the different locations you'll come to in Metro Exodus are going to be unique. They're going to be different. They're going to be all sorts of different types of places. And when you arrive at these places, it's going to be a different season because it's a long train journey. It takes a long time to travel across Russia by train, so each environment's unique, and the environment is in that season at the time, and this one being autumn, you get to go around in the forest environment. You see all these new colors and trees, and the sun's out and things like that. They're very unique new experiences. For Metro,
sure.
For the Metro series, where in the past it was all nuclear winter, cold, covered in snow and ice and everything. So it's really been a cool addition, I think, to the series, to bring in all these different seasons where we can show different sides of what life was like, in post-apocalyptic Russia.
So a core pillar of the Metro franchise is, of course, the very creative weaponry, some of it being cobbled together, some of it being pre-war, and that stuff is generally more valuable. Here we're seeing a crossbow, and you told me before the interview that we've seen a pneumatic crossbow, and I definitely remember the ball-bearing weapon, but this one is a traditional crossbow. What can this do in terms of its variants? Can I shoot different bolts? What does it mean in terms of
gameplay? Yeah, so this is the Helsing. It's a weapon that's been in the series before. In various different configurations, fired bolts, usually by pneumatic,
actuators.
Yeah, and this time, you're seeing in this footage here, it's actually fired by a bow. There's different upgrades that you can get to change how it fires, to change the magazine size. They'll fire regular bolts and explosive tip bolts, which we showed off for the first time in the E3 announce trailer last year.
And in the E3 demo that I played, I came up against some fanatics in kind of a church environment, and I was fighting them in a very conventional stealth/loud Metro sense, and at some point they surrendered, and I didn't know what to make of it. I just kept shooting because I was like, I've never seen this happen before. Is this some kind of trick? But it's not, and that actually affected how they reacted to me in the future. So what do those moral decisions mean in terms of the weight of the story?
Something that's always been really important to us when making Metro games is immersion, atmosphere, making the player feel like they're actually stepping into the shoes of Артём and playing as him and developing his personality and determining who he is, what kind of person he is, based on the actions of the player. So that's something that's been a staple of the series, throughout all 3 games. It's definitely returning this time, and this time around we're actually going to have a lot more opportunities to see how the world and the story reacts to player actions, and potentially changes based on what the player does and how the player interacts with people. Players going to come across all different types of people on this journey, different societies, different factions, different random groups of people. Not all of them will be friendly, but not all of them will be purely evil. So the player has to kind of decide how they're going to interact with them.
What about the enemies we're fighting right now? What faction is this?
So these are, we call them the Children of the Forest, and they've basically been at this, this is like almost like a summer camp location. And when everything blew up, they kind of, they were here, nobody ever came to get them. So they kind of grew up here, and they've kind of made a home for themselves at this camp.
Are they a bit xenophobic, a little bit hostile? That's why we're...
I mean, in general, you're coming into their territory, right? So,
sure.
They're like, who is this guy?
And then this is a night forest environment. We have very different enemies that we're about to see. Talk me through some of the non-human enemies that we'll be fighting in Metro Exodus.
Sure. I mean, in general, so this is actually the same environment. This is just at night. There's a full day-night cycle that the player can actually rest to change, and that will change, the types of encounters that the player can have, or the strategies that they can use in order to approach different situations. So right here, the player we just got attacked by some mutant wolves. There's some other animals running around the area. It's kind of, since it's more of like a forest environment, we wanted to come up with some new mutants that made sense, because some of the ones that you'd see around the Moscow city center wouldn't necessarily make sense out here in the forest. We always try to everything needs to fit and make sense and be realistic when we're creating different content. And so like all this all the humans and the monsters that exist in this area, we spend a lot of time thinking, who would actually live here? How did they come to be at this point? What grew up here? What mutated here? It's all very in-depth thought process that we have when it comes to making sure that everything is really, really accurate, which feeds into that immersion.
One of my favorite parts of Metro is the concept of not really playing the HUD, instead having the HUD integrated into various parts of your kit. So tell me, we have a lighter up. What other elements are we seeing on screen right now? So
you're seeing the watch. You're seeing a little blue light that indicates, it's like a light meter. So it indicates if you're in an area of light, which can tell you if you're visible or not. You have your compass, which kind of tells you the general direction that you need to be going, and then you have a meter that's just behind the watch. It's kind of barely visible there, that tells you radiation levels in the area. And this is something that we've always wanted to do for, again, immersion, physicalizing things that would normally otherwise be represented on a HUD, with a number somewhere, in a corner. We don't like to do that, because we want, again, you to feel like your screen should be a window that you pass through into this world. It shouldn't be, you're sitting down to play a game. It should be you're sitting down and transporting yourself into the world of Metro.
So we've come up on another camp of the Children of the Forest here, and we have a choice between going loud and being quiet, and that has been a core part of the Metro franchise, going all the way back to the beginning. Tell me about the consequences of going loud and some of the challenges you'll face with either decision. So you can choose to approach situations very differently, especially now in Metro Exodus, because we've given a lot more freedom and choice and customization to the player. You can use your backpack at any time to modify your weapons, changing their functionality and changing their attributes by swapping out barrels and stocks and scopes and things like that. And so the player can really choose to approach things stealthy or all out, guns blazing. However, this is a survival game, so if you do go in guns blazing, you might run out of ammo pretty quick, and so you have to be scavenging all the time. You have to be trying to find resources in order to craft more ammunition, or maybe finding some resources on the guys that you take out. So if you do go in guns blazing, you have to be ready for it, and you have to be ready to manage the resources that you have. Going in, the game does kind of encourage stealth approaches to things, because obviously then you're saving your resources, but we try to give the players as much freedom to approach any situation the way that they want to. And a lot of that comes from the loadout, the customizations that you'll be choosing with your weapons, and kind of that informs your play style. What kind of cool attachments and various weapon tinkerings can we see in Metro Exodus?
Well, every weapon has 5 hard points on it, where you can change things like the barrel of stock, an attachment, scopes, sights, different things like that, magazines, and so you'll find different weapons that actually completely change their functionality as you add new items to them. You'll be able to take something like a shotgun that may start with almost like a cylinder type magazine, and you can upgrade that to full on magazine that comes in underneath, or like a barrel underneath, like a drum.
Sure, and you have like the 6-shooter magazine.
Yeah. And so like from that point, then it turns into a semi-automatic shotgun effectively, and you're able to change the amount of damage that you're using. You can put silencers on things that will maybe pull back on the damage, but allow you to shoot stealthily, and then you can put on different barrels that might be really loud, but at the same time do a lot more damage. So there's a lot of options that give players the opportunity to kind of change how they approach things.
Great.
Whenever they want.
So the NVIDIA 2080 release, the ray tracing technology, one of the games shown was Metro Exodus. Tell me about your involvement with ray tracing, what it means in terms of a high-level gamer coming into this game. They enable ray tracing. What's going to be the difference?
So what we're doing with ray tracing and NVIDIA technology is real-time ray traced global illumination. So what you're seeing here is there's one source of light in this scene, and it's the sun. We're not using artificial lights placed around in the environment. That's a pretty standard way of doing things, where it has been in games to this point, where we would place potentially hundreds of light sources all over the place in order to make the environment look really good, and make it look like light is bouncing everywhere realistically like it would. What you're seeing here is just one source of light that is bouncing around the environment using ray tracing technology, and it looks so much more natural. It's lighting areas realistically, and the awesome thing about this technology is having implemented it, it's something it's in the name, global illumination, but it is a global solution to where we can go in and tune things afterwards and add in artificial lights if we want to enhance certain scenes on top of it. But as you can see, we don't really need to.
Sure. And there was a really interesting part in that demonstration with Metro Exodus where there was kind of a rafter being shown in a barn, and with conventional lighting and rasterization, the top was always illuminated, but with this global illumination, that means you can have parts of it that are kind of dark. So what does that allow you to do in terms of horror? Yeah,
I mean, it will certainly, in the case of, having the rafters above in the building, completely dark, where, there's maybe a little bit of a soft glow in the rest of the room around you. We can set, atmosphere, we can set mood, and, we could potentially hide something up there that jumps out at you.
Sure. So finally, for folks who've been with the franchise from the very beginning, what are you most excited for those players to get their hands on in terms of Metro Exodus? What do you think Metro Exodus is doing that is really pushing the envelope and pushing the franchise forward?
Well, specifically, I mean, definitely for the franchise, the big thing this time around is adding those open environments, the open sandbox style gameplay. It's something that's very new to the series. The past 2 games were very linear in design and structure, and this time, giving the player a lot more freedom and a lot more opportunity to explore the world and really immerse themselves in the story and in everything that is Metro, and really have an opportunity to spend some real quality time in these environments. I think players are really going to enjoy that.
Absolutely, can't wait. Metro Exodus, we can expect it on February 22nd on Xbox One, PS4, and PC. John, thank you so much for stopping by, showing us the game. Stay tuned, because we've got a lot more Gamescom coming right here on IGN, so don't go anywhere.